Kamui. Kamui is a space-time ninjutsu that can be used with Obito Uchiha's Mangekyō Sharingan. Kamui allows the user to transfer objects to and from another dimension. These transfers are often characterized by a spiraling void that targets swirl into or out of, distorting their form as they move between dimensions. Targets that enter Kamui's dimension are completely untraceable, as not even their chakra can be detected while they're there. Targets that exit Kamui's dimension do so with varying force, either simply appearing at the ejection point or flying from it. If weapons, such as shuriken, are stored in Kamui's dimension, ejecting them forcefully gives Kamui's users an offensive application. Using Kamui is the only known way to travel to and from its dimension. This means that targets transferred there are trapped, forced to stay until Kamui's user lets them leave. Obito sometimes uses genjutsu on those he imprisons to keep them subdued. This also makes Kamui's dimension effective as a refuge, as anyone taking shelter there can only be reached by using Kamui. But because Obito's two Mangekyō Sharingan spend years with different users, Obito himself and Kakashi Hatake, this makes Obito and Kakashi essentially immune to each other's Kamui. Although one of them can use Kamui on the other can just use Kamui on themselves to escape. This also means they can block or counter each other's attempts to use Kamui on others. Obito, while in the purgatory, was able to use Kamui to temporarily return his soul to Earth to continue assisting Kakashi by granting him the use of his Sharingan for a short time. Right eye. With Obito's right Mangekyō, a short-range version of Kamui is used. Obito most often uses this version on himself, sucking himself into his right eye to enter Kamui's dimension and then exiting back to whatever location he pleases. Sometimes he does this in order to escape attacks, other times he does this in order to travel long distances. Obito can perform this teleportation at will and doesn't need to designate his destination beforehand, leading others to label it superior to the Flying Thunder God technique. Others can be sucked into Kamui's dimension through his eye in addition to or instead of Obito, and in fact it is faster for him to use Kamui on others than on himself. Obito is usually shown making physical contact with those he's using Kamui on, but this isn't always consistent. The other application of Obito's right Mangekyō, when activated, allows him to turn his body, intangible, automatically transferring body parts that otherwise would have been in contact with the overlapping matter into Kamui dimension. Everything he's touching, including his clothes, weapons and even other people will become intangible too. Obito often uses this ability defensively, making all attacks pass through him harmlessly. During early appearances, while using the Tobi persona, Obito commonly pretended to be hurt or feel pain to confuse opponents. Alternatively, Obito uses this ability to pass through barriers or other obstacles and extend the reach of his attacks and ambush his enemies by making his gunbai phase through objects. Obito can even use this ability to travel underground and surprise opponents with attacks from below. Since the transfer is done unconsciously, the downside of this technique is that Obito can't physically interact with anything he wasn't in contact with prior to the ability's activation, forcing him to turn solid if he wishes to engage in combat using taijutsu. However, it's possible to weave chakra and utilize ninjutsu even while slipping through substance. The other weaknesses are that Obito can only keep his body slip through for approximately 5 minutes, and as long as his intangibility is activated, he cannot use Kamui for teleportation. In the brief moment between when he solidifies and when he teleports, Obito is vulnerable. Alternatively, opponents can circumvent his intangibility by transferring themselves or their attacks to Kamui's dimension, which will enable them to damage transported body parts. While Obito is the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki, he is unable to use Kamui to pass through objects. Left eye. With Obito's left Mangekyō, a long-range version of Kamui is used. The user looks at a target and creates a barrier space around them, with the barrier's size being determined by the user. When the user concentrates, anything within the barrier is pulled towards its center, transferring the target to Kamui's dimension. When Kakashi first begins using this version of Kamui, he struggles to perform it with any accuracy, frequently missing his target. Even if he does hit his target, he has difficulty making the barrier space large enough to pull the entire target in. In time, he becomes accurate enough to teleport projectiles mid-flight, and later can make the barrier space large enough to teleport the demonic statue of the Outer Path's head. Additionally, it's viable to transport only selected body parts to mutilate his enemies, inflicting mortal wounds. Defense against this is impossible. Kakashi eventually learns to create the barrier around himself, allowing him to teleport just as Obito does. Because Kakashi is not an Uchiha, using Kamui demands a great deal of chakra for him to perform. It takes him an extended period of time to gather enough chakra to use it, and once he does he can only use it so many times before his chakra is depleted. Originally his limit is 3 times in a day, but this is later increased to an unspecified number. Similarly, because Kamui is used with a Mangekyō Sharingan, repeated use damages Kakashi's vision, eventually reaching the point where it causes his eyes to bleed. When Kakashi receives chakra from the 9 tails, he is able to use Kamui faster, more often, and on targets as large as the 8 tails. He estimates that the 9 tails chakra makes Kamui 3 times more powerful than usual. Madara Uchiha takes Obito's Mangekyō from Kakashi so that he can gain access to Kamui's dimension. Unlike with Obito, being the 10 tails Jinchuriki does not prevent Madara from using Kamui. Both eyes. When both eyes Kamui are used on the same target, whether by a single user or 2 users working together, the teleportation speed is doubled. The power of both eyes also grants the user the ability to generate large portals that can allow others to travel through. While Kamui ordinarily only connects its dimension with the Earth, the user can synchronize Kamui with other space-time ninjutsu, allowing the user to travel to the other ninjutsu's target dimension. Opening portals to those other dimensions requires a great deal of chakra, so much that users will likely need another person's assistance. The 2 powers of Kamui can be used separately, even if to achieve a unified purpose. Obito once used the left Kamui to synchronize with Yamatsu Hirasaka, then used the right Kamui to teleport to its associated dimension. With the 2 Mangekyō, users can also perform Susanoo, through which they can create Kamui shuriken. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.